What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, MsBe Ecstatic, where we explore all things astrology and divination, primarily I Ching and tarot. So today, I found it high time to do another entry on the Venus Diaries. We have Mercury retrograde in Leo at the moment, and a lot of other astrology happening. But the Mercury retrograde had me contemplating, reviewing, reassessing, rethinking, and consequently redoing this video because I wasn't really happy with the first one. Um, and it got me thinking that I really need to do another Venus Diaries entry to follow up on some of the things that I've had in mind. And so before I begin, we're going to do a little bit of a recap, just if you're coming into this, without seeing the other two. And just to recap on Venus, the Venus Diaries was inspired by learning more specifically about Venus. And so, like, it's taking a personal journey to cultivate a relationship with Venus, the planet of love, and really learn more about myself, my Venus, my just deepen my own astrological understanding of Venus by taking a journey with her and just tracking her. So it's because there's so much astrology going on, it's really difficult to focus on just Venus. But um, yeah, so that's why Venus Diaries was born and my inspiration. And so I'm going to do just a really quick recap. In the first diary entry, we talked a little bit about how Venus connects with the sun in the five-pointed star. So she connects with the sun at five different points. And this process takes approximately 9.5 months. And for her to do a full cycle, it's 8 years. And this is something that we see in several different traditions. We see it in being used in Egyptian Mesopotamia culture. We've seen it used in Mesoamerica, the Aztec calendars and the Mayan calendars. And yeah, I'm sure there's others as well. But so in the time that when Venus meets the sun, we call it a cazimi, and she essentially is burning off, going into shadow. She's not visible. She's plunging into the depths of darkness. Well, actually, sunlight, in the rays of the sun. And the way I like to think about it is that just there's like a council, a reprogramming, and like a reprogramming of new values or tweaking of new values, maybe getting a new template or code to take forward in another layer of relationship, in another layer of our relationships to ourselves, to the outside world, to what we love, to how we express Venusian things. On the other, so we talked a little bit about the details, structure, and how 40 days of this is in shadow. And yeah, so the larger cycle where she comes back to the point where she begins unfolds over an 8-year process. And so there's a whole storyline, a whole narrative that we can track through every 8-year cycle. And so it's a great tool to refer back to. And that's, again, why having a diary about it is a good idea. In one of the other entries, we talked about retrograde and like the do's and don'ts and some of the dates and some of the, different expressions of morning star and evening star, things like that, and some of my personal experiences with teal hair and, regrets and exes coming back and things of that nature. So just some tips on that, but like real life experience, not just, the stuff that we get out of the books and like TikTok astrology, which is great. Everything has its place. But um, this is what's fun about having your own diary or tracking it and having intentions is that you can really kind of verify information for yourself and find the truth in these things and where it might be just kind of um, pop, clickbait. All right, so today, let's see. So that's it for my diary. All right, so we recapped Yeah, so with the recap, I just want to remind, God, am I recording? Yes, okay. Oh, that's hilarious. It's Mercury retrograde, like I said. So um, it's good to check. All right, so I wanted to just share this resource again, and I'll be sharing a few other things as well. Again, if you're seeing this diary or this third entry, but the diaries for the first time, this is astroseek.com, and it's a great resource. I'm just up here. I just clicked on the little search and put in Venus to get here, where they have lots of great um, research options. So there's calendars, charts. It really breaks down anything you want in terms of. There's one where Venus Moon conjunctions and retrograde tables and the whole Venus calendar and ingresses. And so, just as a reminder, I'm going to do the graphic 5-petal rose or the Venus star. And as a so yeah, this is from 1981, the year I was born, through 89. Okay. And I know there's one that is, yeah, well, the one that concerns us most. So 2017 to 2025 is the one that we are currently closing out. And, or that we have up to this point closed out, I believe, April. Oh, what day in April? Well, April of 2025, 15 degrees past the retrograde or past the shadow. Um, sorry, past the retrograde point and out of shadow. We started a new Venus star cycle, and we will see a new point in Scorpio this year. So this is a great resource to track her movement in the sky, and we're from 2025 essentially to 2032, 2033, I believe, um, is what we're going to see. That's the window of time that we're going to see the story unfold. Yeah, so just this is so that you can. This one's really cool too, the Venus Moon conjunctions. Yeah, so you can do your own research. You can reference this with things that I'm sharing. All right. So in the most, hi, it's Lee. Oh, by the way, if you are the thumbnail, I should introduce that. Yeah, let's do that real quick before I get deep into this. Let me stop the share here and find. I have taken inspiration, and this happened kind of a lot. Well, it's relative to where we're going. Um, where is he? Okay, yeah. So let me share the screen again. Just do desktop. Yes. Okay. So here is my thumbnail. And up until this point, the last two Venus diaries we had with waves, because we had Venus doing her retrograde cycle between Pisces and Aries. And so my first one was with Pisces, and I thought I would be, structured and congruent and continue on with that theme. But then after, she's finished her process and we're in another Venus, a new Venus unfoldment, I decided that I wanted to change it up a little bit. And part of my inspiration with Venus was just seeing, like creatively expressing myself in new ways. And part of my healing journey in relationships, both with my self-worth, my own the lens on myself and how that impacts my relationships in the outside world, had to do with healing and had to do with this companion of mine, Itzley. And So when I finally just decided to divorce, and I am currently an empty nester, uh, I felt myself go into kind of a deep night of the soul, dark night of the soul. Not as bad as I've had in the years past, but um, I had done a lot of research on this particular breed and had a relationship already connection to the breed, and um, it was it was just so Itzley is my companion, someone that helped ground me into self-love, self-care, and just another level of love and relationship. And so he's teaching me a lot. And so he's kind of like my sidekick on this learning journey. And I just think he's the most beautiful, most loving being on the planet. And so I've included him artistically, creatively, and he's my fellow explorer. He's my traveler. And yeah, so this is part of a larger theme that I will be implementing. So I'll share this as well, just a little teaser. I have been experimenting and playing with AI and oops, and I do have a couple of ideas that where I can well, this is just like the creative aspect, but there is a broader way that I would like to carve out, no, not broader. There is a very clear path that I would like to charter for myself in my astrology education and learning. And it goes back to my childhood heart's desire. And it has to do with being an explorer like Indiana Jones and excavating and digging deep to find the secrets of the unknown or the hidden past. So, yeah, it's this Venus cycle has birthed for me a creative path of exploring astrology. So you'll see more thumbnails with Itzley in it as my travel companion, as we will still be doing like astrocartography, travel, like the astrology of location, and exploring larger themes connected to why we do astrology. Okay, that was not exactly the recap I was looking to do, but here we are. Wanted to remind me. So let's see. So so why Saturn? Why look at Saturn? So most recent um, in the most recent retrograde of Venus, there was something that caught my eye, and it was this Saturn conjunction, Venus-Saturn conjunction. And actually, what caught my eye is that it happened more than once. So one time it happened here in January of 2025, and it was in forward motion and in Pisces. Now, why look at Saturn? Like, what's consequential about Saturn and Venus coming together? And it's like what's beautiful is like the just the symphony of how planets move in the sky and over time, and the configurations, stelliums, the connections and aspects and points that they make are not accidental. They're so filled with purpose. And so this conjunction, and then the one that followed, let's see what the next one was. This thing's in the way. Here we go. April, yeah, this one is where she is in her retrograde. She's communicating with Saturn multiple times, and she's doing this at a time where Saturn is coming to its final degrees in Pisces, and Neptune just ingressed into Aries for the very first time. And they meet with the North Node, they meet with Mercury, and it's like there's a there's something very clearly, intentionally, purposefully with meaning coming together. So why Saturn? So we're going to look at the conjunction that we're talking about now. We're going to also look a little bit at the sextile, and we're also going to look at the square, because the square is actually happening right now as we're recording. And I've really been able to distinctly feel these things. So back here, and so I feel like it's good to articulate what I've been experiencing and share it here. And maybe you can leave a comment below, how you have experienced, like what's been going, what did you get from the last Venus cycle and the last 8-year cycle and the last retrograde that we had back here in April, March, April. What did you uncover? What layer did you either, burn off, or what layer did you of maturity or leveling up did you grow? Like, what did you build? What inspired you? What came through for you over this period of time? Leave me a comment below. Was it a dog? Was it a painting? Was it a new creative hobby? Was it something that you decided to write? Okay, anyway, I'm going on a tangent, and I really wanted to not do tangents on this video. So there was something here with like the Neptune North Node, Venus, and Saturn coming together. And I do know that there's another time period here where Saturn more clearly connected with um, the North Node. And that's when I kind of got the downloads about including, or like what my path would look like, essentially, and to be playful with it by including my companion. So what comes together is the heart's desire. The Saturn brings the structure. Saturn brings form. Saturn brings um, things, structures that are meant to be enduring and long lasting. So I was also thinking about this in terms of like why Libra, like why Saturn is exalted in Libra. What is this relationship between Venus and Saturn? And so I did write down just a few. I made a little cheat sheet, and we'll be reviewing some of this. We're going to go over the conjunction, the square, and the sextile, but I wanted to kind of, again, add form to my ideas here. So actually, the video that I made prior to this one, this is the remake. As I was doing it, I was thinking I really should have a visual of what I'm trying to convey here, or the relationship that I'm trying to connect between Venus and Saturn. And so after the video, I made this, and then I looked over the video. I was like, I really don't like the video. So at least something good came out of my efforts overall. So we're using the terms good-natured qualities because Venus does have, like, just every planet has its more evolved expression, um, and then it has also its shadow or its underdeveloped. These are the words that I choose um, to apply here, because I don't think that there is necessarily anything good or bad, even though we do have, like, traditional astrological terms like malefic and benefic. But how do these two work together? And I really think it's kind of like they're two planets of harmony, essentially. Where they come together is harmony. They both seek um, like justice and order and things that are like beautiful things that last. And yeah, so what does Venus bring to the table? And actually, Saturn does too, in some ways, the loyalty and devotion, harmony. Um, Whereas, Saturn, even though it's loyal and practices devotion, and harmony. It also is a little bit, it's known as being cold, right? Um, or distant. So oftentimes it could mean that love is distant, that it is delayed in life, that maybe we don't get a relationship of deep meaning until later in life. Or maybe we have long distance relationships. That might actually be more of a Jupiter thing. But I wanted to share this as a quick guide because basically, and I'll have it for free for you to um, download in the links below. I'm basically using this diary, this Venus Diaries, as a way to kind of catalog my experience. And so I'm creating some structure around it. So this is very Venus-Saturn. This quick PDF is a very Saturn thing. It's like the ideas, my heart's desire, the vision that I want to express, the qualities and the um, just what I want to bring into the world is it demands form, it needs structure, and and even though I want it fast, even though Venus wants it to indulge herself now, I had to do it over because it wasn't going to work the way I did it the first time. And of course, Mercury retrograde has a lot to do with that too. So so Venus is more magnetic, whereas um, Saturn is more detached and maybe more direct or serious or stoic. So there's also the shadow side, as I said, indulgency, jealousy, people-pleasing tendencies. So maybe not, again, that's where like the boundaries need to come in, right? Um, sorry. Um, I gotta pause this for 1 second, everybody, 1 second. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? All right, you know what? Never seen you do that. I've never seen you do that. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Um, what is going on with you? Am I missing something? All right. Well, again, little interruption there. I don't know why I'm so itchy. And yeah, so pardon me for fidgeting. Okay, so we were talking about the shadow side of Venus until we were interrupted. Codependency, people-pleasing tendencies, manipulative charm, jealousy, superficial connections. That's that, indulgence. I want it now. And seeking comfort in addictions, vanity, materialism, um, maybe being too compromising in our integrity, um, in order to get outcomes, again, quicker, sooner, the way we want them, escapism. And then on the Saturn side, discipline, responsibility, wise teacher, wise counsel, humble, patient, emotionally resilient. When it comes to structure and legacy, hardworking, organized, strategic, grounded, dutiful, long-term thinker. Boundaries, again, steady, focused, loyal, ethical, builder of systems, teacher of truth. And in the more underdeveloped shadow side, we have controlling, rigid, rigid, cold, right? Cold and dark is Saturn. And judgmental, shame-based, perfectionist, burdened with duty rather than, taking joy in creation. Status seeking, areas like another underdeveloped or, lower expression would be stagnation, suffocation. So this is something that I'm going to continue to build on. It's only 3 pages right now. But you can, with your email, I can send you a PDF to add this to your own personal catalog of archetypes and aspects. This one was created specifically for this video in the conjunction square and sextile of Venus and Saturn. And it'll be part of something, a smaller part of something larger that'll be more long lasting and have broader helpful indications for later. So I think you see where I'm going. Conjunction. So the aspect of a conjunction is when a planet aligns with another one, come together between 0 and 10 degrees of each other. The 10-degree orb is really just because of maybe with inner planets like Mars and Mercury and Jupiter and Saturn, we can use smaller orbs, but with the larger outside planets, like Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, those 10 degrees, we can also, I feel like, is a fair orb to work with. So the energies blend. Love meets discipline. There's innumerable ways that this can happen, but I think I've already just shared with you one way that it happened for me. And you want to take a look at, I'm going to show you the dates of those conjunctions so you can reference back in your life and you can look at your photos or your phone log or your emails and get an indication of maybe how it might have shown up for you. Get cued in to something that might have been seeded already. Okay, so after the conjunction, we usually see sextiles. And sextiles is a 60-degree angle, a 60-degree aspect connection, touch point, and we can use plus or minus 4 degrees for that. We see a more ease and opportunity, more flow of energy between the 2 planets. And so harmonious structure and relationships. And I can for sure see how the period of time when Venus came out of shadow, she'd already made these conjunctions, both with the Sun and with Saturn, with Neptune and the North Node. I mean, she's like polished, shiny, and new. She's ready to, make some moves. I felt that way. That's how I felt. And yeah, I have a Saturn in Libra and my Venus is in Capricorn, which is Saturn ruled. So for me, it felt really good. It felt exactly like that. And what I'd like to talk about in this video more is the square, which offers growth intention. And that's what it feels like. That's what today is actually July 31st. There is a approaching Venus square. And actually we have the Mercury Cazimi happening today as well. So there was a lot of like just buzzing energy today that I really felt like I need to redo. Just the kind of energy to redo a video on. Okay, so these are the aspects and using, the blending, the flow, and the tension for opportunities and growth, we can then apply the archetypes. We can look back in our lives. We can reference what's going on in our immediate environment and also out in the world in the mundane, which we can get to as well, just a little bit. So, so we have the conjunction, as I said. This one is the forward motion as she is preparing to go into retrograde. And let's see, I want to now. So if you have any planets or points at 16 degrees Pisces, you can look back to that. And we're going to go ahead and move to the next one, which is April 7th. Oops, did it not? There we go. With the retrograde. So with the retrogrades, we know that we are revisiting, and see also Mercury right here. So I'm revisiting themes that I had looked over in this Venus retrograde. What themes were you immersed in January and in April? It should be really obvious. Wonderful tool. I think retrogrades are wonderful. I love that we get 3 different opportunities in the year with Mercury to revisit the things that we're doing, to recalibrate. And with Venus in retrograde, definitely felt a more inward process, it being in Pisces. So what did I want to say about that? Okay. So now we have Neptune in Aries. Again, and Pluto is going direct. So we have like a really interesting trine happening here with Mars too. There's a lot of connections here helping us towards at the end of, I should say at the beginning of all of these outer planetary ingresses, Pluto into Aquarius, Neptune into Aries, the Uranus making its way into Cancer, Cancer moving into, Jupiter moving into Cancer where it's exalted. Mars having, gone through a long, long stay in Cancer. There's like a systematic reprogramming of our very fundamental houses, zodiacal expression. Now, of course, it's going to look different for everyone depending on your chart, what time you were born, and what your ascendant is, or your sun or moon, wherever your personal planets are. But it's very clear on a mundane level that we are getting a really big reset. And this Venus retrograde was a big part of that. So let's look at the next one, April 24th. Oh, I did it again. I don't know why I do that. Okay. So now, yeah, this is the one. Ah, this is the one. Yeah. It was very clear to me that like astrology is where I need to put all of my energy, is where I really want to put all my energy. And like I've gotten that message over and over and over again, but it was really like that Venus cycle and this particular chart that was like, yeah, see, with Mars in Leo, 2 degrees of the heart. It's like, this is really my heart's desire. So Saturn with the North Node, the Moon, Venus, it's like my let's make form. Let's find a form. Let's put to your vision a structure to manifest into the 3D. And then our final conjunction for Venus and Saturn will happen in March. And so their synodic cycle will conclude. So things that happened at the beginning of January of 2025 that are connected to this Venus retrograde that we had, that are connected to the larger 8-year cycle that we completed, and the new one that we're starting, we will see our first indicators of what this Venus cycle will look like. The themes will be firmly planted and seeded in fresh soil. It's exciting. It's exciting. And and because of this Saturn connection, it reminds us that this is a process. This is not something that's going to happen the day after they connect, the day after Venus retrograde comes out of shadow. No, it is, it's a longer storyline, and it's meant to, mm, yeah, it's meant to be savored for sure. Yeah. Okay, so those are the conjunctions. And I am kind of blending the Saturn with the Venus star point retrograde, because it matters. I feel like it definitely played a role, as does these outer planetary ingresses having an influence on writing the script going forward in ways that we haven't seen before. Neptune, we have never and won't ever again see this kind of ingress of Neptune into Aries. We won't be alive. And now it'll go retrograde and then it will come back um, at 29 degrees Pisces, but it'll come back into Aries and it'll be there for good. And again, it will not happen like that in our lifetimes. So there's very clearly a unique signature occurring in the same timeline of the Saturn Venus synodical cycle, the North Node, and these other ingresses and planetary movements. Pluto in Aquarius for the first time in a long time. Yeah, so extraordinary times, worthy of being documented. All right, so we're going to go from now the conjunctions now to sextiles. In the previous video, I did do mundane. I looked at mundane. Um, and that's easy enough to do. When you have the dates, you can go into, you know, Google or your news app, and you can look back at the date and see what was happening on or around that time frame. So I don't think I'm going to necessarily do that here. There was something that I wanted to, we'll look at this last conjunction. Okay. All right. That is a major water grand trine. And you see there's like a bit of a, hold on, let me move this out of the way. Let's get the annotations out because this is, can't believe I was going to move on without looking at this. Okay. But look at this incredible stellium buildup. And there's so much incredible astrology happening in 2026. But here again, we have Venus and Saturn together. Um, and Saturn has passed over Neptune. They both passed over Neptune. So, wow. And on the day of their conjunction, they are connecting with well, no, they aren't specifically, but this chart's pretty fantastic. All right, well, what we came here for was the Saturn and Venus connection. So they'll be starting a new synodic cycle where they will go from, conjunction, coming together, sextile, uh, 60-degree, square, 90-degree. And then I have opposition. We could do oppositions if we wanted to, but I was really just right now focusing on those three. But wowza. Look at this. Mercury, Jupiter, Moon. But it's not just Mercury, it's the Sun, Mercury, Pallas. And then it's square, like the nodes are squared, South node squared. Or sorry, sextile. Sextile the node. Okay, I digress. So that'll be the start of a new synodic cycle for Saturn, and Venus. And so it would be a great time to, if you haven't already, start journaling on that relationship. All right, so let's get into the sextile. I'm just going to show it. Is this it? No. Oh, that's why. Go back into event. There we go. Oops, no, that's not it. Previous. Yeah, so let's see. July 6th. Here is our sextile. Let me get my pencil right here. Harmonious connection, ease and flow. Where in your life did you experience Saturn in Aries and Venus in Gemini in smooth connection, ease and flow? In relationships, in new creative ideas, putting forms around your heart's desire. Um, where were things just kind of hitting, connecting, moving? Did you meet anybody new? This is a really cool chart too. I'm telling you, there is not like an uninteresting or benign, quiet chart anywhere to be found. Oops, there we go. Okay, so the next trine, or sorry, sextile will be January 14th, 2026. Look at that. So sextile again before it then conjuncts in March. So here we have Venus in Capricorn, Saturn in Pisces as it's moving back into Aries, both in forward motion with Neptune. So there's a lot of area still to cover. So there's time. There's time to put things in motion. We're in a square right now. So let's go to the square. Well, I'm going to show, excuse me. I'm going to show the one in 2024 real quick. So we have Venus in square over here. And in October, we could see, I'm just going to use mundane for a moment. We know that there was a lot of hostility, a lot of tension, a lot of posturing and negotiations falling apart, and things happening in the political scope between, um, well, all over. We had Russia and Ukraine, um, Iran and Israel, um, heightened concerns of Gaza. And there was also even posturing between India and Pakistan. So we can see when it comes to diplomacy, when it comes to the structures of fairness and justice and, power and, you know, commerce, right? Like these things matter because it impacts the quality of life of everyone. And there was an enormous amount of tension. And from it, there has since been some, we can see probably with the sextiles, we could probably track with the sextiles and maybe even the trines where there maybe have been some pauses or um, maybe some ceasefires or, calls for peace and negotiations. So that was in 2024. And then, obviously Trump comes into speaking from an American perspective, right, or Western perspective. That's where I live. Um, oops. To our current Saturn Venus square, where we're seeing the same things. We're seeing the same things in the same areas in the world. We're seeing negotiations about tariffs. We're seeing um, continued negotiations and calls for ceasefires. And um, there was, one nation giving weapons to another, um, and then other organizations, groups calling out for peace and demanding that all of that be stopped. So there is now um, a, again pressure to get things moving in a different direction. And I certainly have felt the pressure personally in my own life to put boundaries and limitations around my relationships outside of myself. So feeling the stresses of relationships, the pull, the energy that is drawn on in connecting with others had gotten to an overwhelming point where I actually had to send messages of like, hey, I'm taking a step back. I've reached my limitation. And I'm 44. So when I was younger, that is not something that I would have thought I could do. I know it sounds silly to say, but I was much more in a people pleasing place in my younger years. But the Saturn cycles, um, including the one that we're in now with Venus, I've learned a few times that I can say no, that I can protect is another, even though we call it might be perceived as controlling, it might be perceived as being cold or isolating. It's protecting my peace, Venus, protecting my energy. So, and there's times to use that. And certainly around a Saturn square with Venus, it's an opportunity to do that, to assess where our energy is being abused or misused, or maybe we're doing that to ourselves, or maybe it's happening from outside. And, we have a responsibility. No one else is going to do that for us. So let's see. And Saturn is about responsibility. So I wanted to talk about this square. I wanted to take you back to the one in October, the one that we're currently in here, August 1st, share with you my personal experience with that. Um, we also, as I said, have Mercury and the Sun coming together today. I'm actually recording on the 31st, but the energy's ripe. And you can see Neptune and Saturn are together only just a few minutes apart. Jupiter, Venus just made its way into Cancer, which is why we have that square now. And yeah, okay. So I wanted to share the square piece because it's what I've picked up both personally in my life, but also something that you can see visibly out in the world. It's so easy to pick up on. And so going forward into the next Venus square, as we've been doing with the conjunction and the sextile, December 20th, 2025, this is a little concerning, slightly concerning. Just that it's a coming, it is the last square before Venus and Saturn conjunct in March. So it has more than 3/4 of the way made its way through its synodic cycle with Venus. So something is coming to a conclusion. Something is coming to an ending point. It is approaching its ending point in which we can see some kind of what our results are. Okay. So along with this, there's a few things happening in the same chart. So keeping in mind that we started in January, Saturn and Venus together, and we are going to see them again in March. And that there's touch points throughout the way in the story. There's little bridges of evolution in lessons or structures in place for us to make use of the energy that they provide. This final square before March conjunction has some different influences. So Saturn doesn't like to be in Pisces. It's just he's not happy there because it's harder for Saturn to create form in a boundless space, in a watery space. Neptune, right there, another boundless imagination. Um, outer like just Neptune's out there, man. It's the outer centaur. It has its back to us. It's looking out even beyond what Saturn can see. So if Saturn can't see it, how can he identify it? How can Saturn then put form to something that is not seen? So it's a really rough place. And so he's weakened, his abilities, his gifts, and it might take on a more, um, shadow aspect in some cases. So Saturn is squaring over to Venus in Sagittarius. Why does this matter? And when I was looking at it, I was thinking, well, both Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter. And when I look at Jupiter, where's Jupiter? Because Jupiter is going to be dispensing energy to any planets that are in these houses. So Jupiter's retrograde, and he's retrograde in his exalted spot, Cancer, at 22 degrees. So what's significant of that? Well, Jupiter also squares over to Chiron, 22 degrees. So let's start with just Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter retrograde, when it moves forward, it's it's taking a lot of energy with it forward, a lot of momentum, expansive momentum, um, expanding everything it touches. Jupiter dispenses lessons. It is higher education. It is higher learning. It is about higher level ideas, beliefs, I yeah, spiritual, religious um, theologies, ideologies. Okay, all the G's, isms, and idges. Okay, square to Chiron, which Chiron is also a teacher, by the way. As I understand it, Chiron was like the wounded healer. He was a teacher, he was an herbalist, and he helped warriors to recover. He was able to heal himself, so he was able to help others. So the square here, as we know, square is going to create tension, enough tension for us to find growth in the areas of lessons in our religious ideas, beliefs, ideologies, um, and our wounds. Maybe the narratives that we have, our inner stories about these things. Um, our most vulnerable spaces will certainly be exposed. So that's one aspect, is the Chiron square. So Chiron squaring over to Jupiter, Jupiter's a Chiron, but Chiron in retrograde is an internal process, an internal reflection, and it's going to, or in the outside world, in the mundane world, it might be a revisiting, a reworking, um, reflecting, or rejection of something. And this planet, Jupiter, retrograde 22 degrees, is is dispensing energy into the house where Venus is and the house where Saturn is, where they too are squaring. So I feel like amongst other things that are going to be happening leading up to December, um, these squares, I wouldn't normally look at Jupiter, except that they're in his house. And the last thing that I want to share is something that I learned from a webinar I took on degree theory. And this was something that, what's his name? Nicholas Stojanovic. created. So he's a famous astrologer, and he developed this theory. And there, like certain degrees, just kind of like a dignity, or like the Egyptian or Chaldean or William Lilly, like certain degrees or parts of the zodiac express other qualities. The 22nd degree is a Capricorn degree, and it is known, well known in degree theory, to be the kill or be killed degree. So this degree point showing up twice, obviously, in this square configuration that is also influencing the Venus-Saturn square. It's a little concerning to me. Into like in your own personal life, in my personal life, what I'm going to do is avoid confrontation and find ways to alchemize any energies that are coming up, being triggered or come up with inside of me that whether they be insecurities, fears, anxiety, or shame, or guilt, or sadness, or anger around, whatever the wound might be, whatever comes up around this time. And I'm going to make sure not to project that on other people, because this is something that, that one of the shadow aspects of Saturn is projection. Rigidity, being fixed in your stance and that you're right. So in your own personal life, this is a place, a time, and a place to be observant. It'd be great if you haven't already, start journaling, so that when like you can be more present and aware when and if something comes up for you personally. And this will help to get the last, to optimize on the most positive outcomes of the synodic cycle between Saturn and Venus as it closes out in March. So in the outside world, we could possibly see, Jupiter is royal, is usually identified as royalty or leadership. There could be death. There could be a loss. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. Maybe someone in the public eye could be shamed because of the Chiron aspect here, publicly shamed. Like having to be like shown and face their demons. And that potentiality would influence, as the Jupiter ruler of Sagittarius and Pisces, it could have an effect on diplomacy in the world, relationships. But obviously what matters most and what we have control over is our own lives. So that's where I would focus. Okay. Did I cover? Yeah. So I didn't want to I don't want to, create any fear around this 22nd degree. It doesn't necessarily, in astrology, as far as I have consciously really made an effort to track, scary aspects or transits or potentially scary ones are just that. They're just potential. There's potential, but it doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that way. It's just something that I wanted that drew my attention, and that it would be, it's just something that it would be great to come back to and see if, how it played out, if it played out at all, just to test the degree theory, So keep an eye out for that. And oof, I don't know. keep messing with the annotations. All right, so yeah, that is it for now. And I will be back with another series that will cover, maybe I'll cover trines. You can let me know in the comments if you want me to cover trines and oppositions. I would really like to do Mars because we've seen some really interesting Mars. We've had some interesting astrology around Mars recently. And yeah, I have a few other things that are in the works. So I do hope that you stay tuned. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the like button. Help me with the algorithm, help me get this information out there. Um, and, it doesn't cost anything to be supportive and kind. And there is a free, remember, I'll show it again here. It is my little Venus Saturn work page. And so this is the archetypes and aspects. And I'm going to continue to build on this, like I said, from our Venus Diaries exploration. And I would love to see some comments kind of giving me feedback if you want. And if you would like a copy of this, there's a link below to follow. And it'll, just fill in your email and it'll be sent to you. And when it is updated, I can let you know, and you can, just like me, I'm adding to my catalog of information, and I'm happy to share what I have with you if it interests you at all. Um, yeah. So also, I did just um, set up a very basic, simple landing page for this. So you can go to MsBeEcstatic.com, and there is a freebie link for the download, so you can go there too. So if you don't follow the link in the description, you can follow it on the website, MsBeEcstatic.com. And there's a lot in the works that I'm really excited to share. And I'm not saying this with urgency because this is a longer process. So if you want to stay up to date, if you want to contribute, if you want to be a part of it, then subscribe, and you can do that at my website as well. But until then, be well, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.